reach,
inspire,
and transform. NASM Optima 2021 Virtual Conference.
our biggest and best Optima yet.
3 full days of learning.
More than 100 virtual sessions.
Inspiring speakers you can't miss.
Challenging workouts to master your skills.
Nutrition and lifestyle facts.
The best community network.
And for the first time ever, with free full online access.
At Optima 2021.
Find out more and register today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Random Fit. I am Wendy Batts, one of your hosts, and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Ken Miller. How are you?
Hey, Wendy. How's it going?
Oh, just living a dream. How are you?
Sure. Well, same.
Well, that's good. Every day you wake up, you should be blessed.
That's right.
Well, today we have an exciting topic regarding nutrition, which again, I really enjoy doing research on these topics because I find it very helpful for myself, because some of these tips I often take for granted or forget. And I thought today would be the day that we would share them with the world, just to remind you of how easy it can be to truly watch your nutrition day in and day out on the go with busy lifestyles and still try to hit specific goals aimed towards whatever your ultimate goal is long term. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those things where, again, looking at the points, you look at these things that we're going to talk about today, and you're like, oh, I forgot about that. You know what? That's a good one. I don't know why or how I got away from it, because, when I'm talking to my clients and I'm giving them these tips that we're going to share, they're like, oh, that's right. You told me that last year. I forgot about that one. I think I'm going to try it again, because we, like you said, we do get busy, like, school's in session and, having to drop off, pick up activities. Then you are quick to forget. All right. When did I eat last? When was my last glass of water? When was the last time I had a vegetable in my face versus one of those snacks that we give our kids? So I think these are, like you said, Wendy, these are good reminders, some things that we need to revisit because they were at some point successful for most people. And then for some reason or another, they just got away, which happens.
Yes. And I actually worked on a pharmaceutical worked with a pharmaceutical company who was trying to launch this one particular drug. And on the other side of it, we were looking for nutritional advice and programming and showing that exercise could be kind of the placebo. So some people were taking a placebo and then doing exercise, and some people were taking a specific drug. And these tips they found extremely helpful. And I know I did as well. So why don't we just go ahead and start it off? I think first and foremost, we all know when you go grocery shopping, don't go hungry, because then you're going to pick up a bunch of stuff that you know you shouldn't eat, because at that moment it's quick, it's simple, it looks good, and it's probably not healthy, right? So that sounds like it should be a piece of cake. However,
it should be.
And you and I have talked about this before. Make a list of all the stuff that you need, and think in advance about what type of meals you want to cook, and then put all of those ingredients on the list, as well as some snack foods. But then just make sure that when you go to the store that you use that list, and that, unless something pops in your head, like milk or something, don't start adding other stuff, because it's going to increase that grocery bill that and then you're going to come home, and then half of that stuff probably wasn't things that you should have had in your pantry to begin with. And that's why it wasn't there. So tip number one.
Well, right. Because, just the other week, and I know you and I, Wendy, we talk offline, pretty often. But, chances are when we're talking, I'm on my way home from one of those warehouse stores. And one of the things that always gets me, especially before the pandemic, is, the food sampling that they have like in the middle of the aisle. And I don't know how many pieces of cheese or, cereal samples or smoothies, whatever's being made, that's what I'm chomping on, because like you said, Wendy, like you go to the store and you're hungry, especially you go to one of those warehouse stores where you have like every other aisle, someone standing there behind the pet, they're either blending something up, heating something up, putting something in those little paper tiny cups. And you're like, it's just a little cup. It's, but the next thing you know, you're at the checkout stand and you're like, man, I'm kind of full.
Well, and if it tasted good at the time, you probably put it in your basket too. So
And I
therefore,
do.
yes.
I don't know how many bags of crackers or cookies or salami or whatever I put in the
My
cart.
husband is the worst.
Yeah.
He came home the other day with a huge box of gummy bears. I'm like, seriously? He's like, yeah, but your son really wanted some. I'm like, then go buy one pack, not like 50. And so now we literally have 50 something packs of these small gummy bears that every day he comes home from school and he's like, can I have a pack of gummy bears? When in all reality, I'm like, why don't you have some grapes, or why don't we have some fruit? So yes, that obviously is a big one. But, I think too, when we're talking about grocery stores, it's really important to think, they always talk about, making sure that you go just through the outsides of each aisle. Like, don't go in the middle unless you need to get something, because most of those things are already pre-made. They're higher in sodium, they're higher in, calorie content, and it's just not as healthy for you versus if you go through produce and you go through the meat department, and then you go through whatever types of bread or whatever it is that you need. If you literally stay on the perimeter and the outside of the grocery store, you're probably going to be more successful in your choices as well. Just another tip.
And the way I look at that too is that, when you do go outside or you do shop the perimeter of the grocery store, you're also putting all the important stuff in your cart first. So if you've got your cabbage and carrots and your
cabbage and carrots,
your Tuscan cantaloupe, bananas.
Wow.
Then you have all the good stuff in the cart first. That instead of putting all the junky stuff in there, priority goes in first, and then whatever's left over. I mean, because you know what, I've got kids and they're gonna want to throw some stuff in the cart, and I'm not that, that totally tough guy that says nope, put it away. I'll say go ahead and have one of those things. So if you're listening to us now here on Random Fit, we are looking at nutrition tips with myself, with Wendy Batts, and we're going over some pretty good stuff here. Wendy, what's next as far as how to shop?
Well, I think when you're talking about shopping, obviously you have to think ahead about your meals. Like, what do you want to have throughout the week? Because I know myself, I only have certain days of the week that I can go to the grocery store. Obviously I would love to buy fresh and go every single day to like a farmer's market or something, but that just isn't realistic. And so on, over the weekend, I will sit down with my husband and say, okay, listen, what days are we going to grab something out because, my kid has baseball or it's going to be late and I don't have time to cook, or what meals are we going to actually make? And then I write everything out. I think that's really important. Plus, you can also think, what can you make ahead of time? And I think that's one thing I am horrible at, is pre-making meals. So therefore, when instead of going out on those days I don't have time to cook, I could actually say, okay, you know what, we made this meal, it's already done. All I have to do is throw it in the oven or whatever, microwave if that's what I have to do. But I am horrible at that. And I don't know if you or Stacey, you're good at that, but that's something I truly need to be better at, because then I know what's going in each and every one of my meals. And it's not something that's from a package that, that's not necessarily as healthy for me.
Right. Yeah. Now planning, that is a challenge. Just because, well, for one, just to revisit what we talked about earlier with, I go to the grocery store. I'm going to go with where my instincts take me, and that instincts are going to take me to eggs, to chicken, to broccoli, and some of the regular stuff that goes on. So I wind up having a surplus of repeated things. Like, at some points in time, I have like 3 containers of non-fat yogurt, right? So now it winds up, okay, how do I pair up this yogurt with granola in my smoothie, with some fruit? And that's what really takes the planning, right? So if you have a certain item, you got to think about, okay, multiple ways of preparing that item. So looking ahead definitely helps you, prevent that monotony. I think, that's where I wind up going. But if I have a chance to know that, okay, I've had some red meat, I've had some fish, I've had some vegetables, I can kind of mix and match and make sure I have a little bit of everything. And that's where the planning comes in. It's kind of like, you have certain columns of your checklist that need to be, checked off as far as, what you make sure you have. But, I've also grown to repurpose food, like leftovers. I eat leftovers. If it's in there, it's less than, 5 days, I'll repurpose it too. So if I know that I'm going to have baked chicken, there's a lot you can do with leftover baked chicken, right? Then I can add some tomato sauce and make some version of chicken there. So I have to make sure that all the condiments and accessories get consideration too, on top of the big things that you're talking about with meat and produce and vegetables and fruit and all that good stuff. But there's always lunch you have to think about, and what am I putting into my kids' mouths when I'm not with them, because they do want all the snacky stuff. So that's another thing, because I'm not a big cook. My dad was always the cook in my house growing up, so he was one of those, okay, chop this, peel that, and then he'd say, all right, get out of the kitchen. All right, and then he would be the one that put everything together. So I was more of the sous chef than anything else. But that's now I'm having to revisit all that. So my dad always had onions and garlic, and we always had rice and carrots and potatoes as things to always consider as far as making sure that was on the meal plan, because you had to feed 3 growing boys, and the big pot of spaghetti was always our go-to. Little ground beef, spaghetti sauce, and spaghetti noodles, and that would last us about 2 days.
I need to get so much better at eating leftovers. I will make something, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, I put it in its little Tupperware. I stick it in the refrigerator, and then I'm like, oh, it's trash day. 4 days later, I just dump it straight in the trash. So I am horrible at that too. But I mean, it really, I'm not cost effective, and I need to get better at that, because to your point, when we keep thinking about, like you said, if you make spaghetti and you have this leftover sauce, there's so many other things that you could do with that. However, mine usually ends up in the trash. So, but I think another thing when we're talking about kind of pre-planning is also thinking about, grabbing snacks. So for me, like I'm like you, Ken, I've got kids, I've got work, I've got meetings, I've got things going on. I think about what I'm going to put in my kid's lunch, because heaven forbid he eat at school. That is like, no, he only wants to eat something that he brings from home, which I mean is good and bad. But with that being said, I want to also think, okay, what can I already have in a baggie? So if we do need to, like for example, today when I pick him up for school, there's a couple errands. I want to have something that I can give him. And so if I already have things already put in a baggie, I can just grab it and go, because if not, then he's hungry, and then he'll come and make bad choices. And instead of eating, fruit or grapes or something that I've already got kind of just portioned out, it really does make a big difference. I started reading that, I did it, and I was like, oh man, this actually works, because I said, hey, just grab one of those bags and let's go. And he actually ate it, because I didn't say, hey, do you want Cheez-Its or Goldfish or, these are your, or, the gummy bears, these are your 3 options. So I'm trying to get him away from those gummy bears and try to feed him something that I know is way healthier and, holds him over until we can actually sit down and have a good dinner.
Right. And it's funny you say that, Wendy, because this school year I started doing that, to where there is that bag in the back seat and they can dive into it when they get in the car. Because what happens is that, if they wait a little too long, between school and home, which isn't that far, they're hangry, and then they go straight to the cupboards, and they are just digging for whatever their hands can grab, which might wind up being, ironically enough, a pack of gummies, which, you put the word fruit on there, they think it's not as much of a gummy candy as what it really is. But that's, those are the steps that I take to try and keep them away from, grabbing that stuff. But I think that leads into one of the points that we have on our list here is going through the pantry and actually getting rid of some of the junky stuff.
Yes. Yes. And while it hurts me to throw food away, what I've done, and I did this actually 2 months ago, was I went through and cleaned out my pantry, and I noticed that I had some stuff in there, that was canned that I thought one day we were going to make, and we never did. And so, I'm throwing away a lot of food because of, the expiration date, but things that I knew also weren't healthy for me, but was still good. I ended up putting in a box, and I actually, donated it, because there's so many people out there that does not, that they don't have food, they don't have money, and I'm sitting here throwing mine away because I know it's not healthy. Not that I'm trying to give away my unhealthy, food options. However, if it's going to help somebody, then I absolutely want to do that. So consider, when you go through your pantry, if it's still good, if it's somewhat healthy or something that someone else can use, especially coming up with the holidays and all the food drives that are going on. It's definitely worth looking into, because you've made a bad choice. Maybe it could be a good choice for someone else.
Right. And I've actually done that, to where there's people around our neighborhood that are in certain situations, and taking care of that food that we know is probably not the best choice, and but somehow it found its way into our house. You take that, and you take some a mixed bag of fruit, some bananas, apples, and things like that. And if you can give it to them directly, where they know it's not such a volume of food that it's going to sit around, but something that they can consume more immediately. Yeah, I mean, that's one way to kind of do kill two birds with one stone, clean out your pantry of the things that you realize that it's probably not the best thing to eat throughout the day, but like you said, you are helping somebody out, and you throw a couple of good, nutritious things in there, and then, you've actually made a pretty okay box that that they're going to consume.
Well, yes. And as much as I buy in bulk, or my husband buys in bulk for us, I don't need 20 boxes of spaghetti, just saying, I really don't. So giving, 10 of them away, it's still going to be set for many, many months to come.
Right.
So just, something to consider. But I know a big one, and now I'm actually talking about myself. And this is what I've done for my family, because when you go out to some of these restaurants and you see the amount of food that comes out, I was always taught, and I don't know if you were, my mom was 100% Greek, straight off the boat, and you would sit there and clean your plate, or you would sit at the table until it was done. And she didn't care if you were there for 30 minutes. She didn't care if you were there for 2 hours. You were going to eat whatever she made and put on that plate. And so I don't know about you, Ken, but we have some really cool plates, but they're big. They're very big plates. And so for me, when you're loading up the plate to give to your family, or even myself, I will grab the larger plates and I'll put food on there. But then I'm like, man, that is a lot of food. So a trick that is a common tip that we wanted to talk about, which is, you guys are joining us on Random Fit. We're talking about nutrition tips. And, one thing that is a good tip is to use smaller plates. And so not necessarily like the little, dinky dessert plates, but, sometimes there's one that's right in between. And if you feel like you need to, in your mind, fill your plate to have, to make yourself full, because it's more of a mind game than what your stomach is telling you, then if you use a smaller plate, you're actually using and consuming a smaller portion than if you used a bigger plate. And that has been super helpful in my family.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, that, what scenario you just described there, Wendy, is like, you're not leaving that chair until that plate is clean. And depending on what it was, there'd be some times where you just, you're closing your eyes as that spoon is going into your mouth, and you're there for a long time. My brother actually sat at the table one time for 3 hours, and it was my uncle that was watching us. And my uncle fell asleep at the table because it took him so long to finish the food that he was eating. So that was how hardcore we were with that thought process. You're not leaving there because there's somebody in the Philippines that doesn't get half of that. Yes. And so you better finish that food. And it's like, what does that have to do with me?
Once a year, my mother made us eat liver, because it was supposed to be good for your brain and it brings good luck. I don't know what kind of luck she was thinking, but I would sit there forever. I mean, forever. And then the same thing, she would finally give up and she would excuse herself from the table. I would still have to sit there. And luckily we had a dog. Luckily, we had a
Oh,
dog,
man.
and as soon as I could give it to the dog, but then the dog wouldn't eat it, so then it's on the floor. It was a disaster. However,
That's when you
just
say,
saying,
yeah, that's
you
when you
know,
say, hey, mom, look, even the dog doesn't want it.
I know I punish me, but I can't do it. I just can't do it. And this happens once a year,
Yeah.
every year. I'm like, it's liver. I mean, there's no luck. I get the black eyed peas at the beginning of the year. There's a lot of, superstition around all of that. Fine. Give me black eyed peas all day. Please don't make me eat liver, please. So plate size is one. And then another super helpful hint. And this was one that we used a lot when we were doing a lot of some of the nutrition programs and working with some of these individuals in the program that I discussed, was drinking a glass of water before you actually sat down at the table. And if you did that, then you would become full quicker. So you're really not eating as many calories during dinner because you're going to be full. And I was like, oh, that doesn't work. I drink water all the time, all day, but I would down a glass of water and sit down. And I'm like, man, this really works. So if you're trying to eat less, maybe try that. Drink a big glass of water before you sit down for your meals and see if I'm not saying don't eat whatever you want to eat. However, make good choices. But if you drink water, you really will become full faster.
Right. And, it's funny because I was talking to my doctor last month, and he said the same thing. He's like, have a glass of water before you sit down, and then refill your glass so you have another glass to eat with, to drink while you're having dinner. So that was like, oh, okay. Again, those tips and tricks that, we have to revisit. But he reminded me of that. Yeah, have one before, not just two during, because a lot of times you're still eating and drinking and eating and drinking. But if you quote unquote pre-fill your stomach with water, then that's still space. Even though it's liquid, it's still space that the water's taken up, that the food has to compete with. But you still want to have still keep that hydration coming along. Not that you're trying to stay hydrated during dinner, but you still want to have that fluid coming in with your meal. So to still add the volume into your stomach. So I was like, oh, okay. Yep. And like you said, Wendy, it works.
It works. Another one, if you're not a huge water fan, which hopefully you are, but if you're not, then I know my family is really big on soup. Like, we all love soup. I ate it every single day when I was pregnant. I thought my kid was going to turn out to be like chicken noodle soup, which is, by the way, his favorite food of all day, all choices. And probably because I forced him to eat it in my stomach every day. But a soup, because it's liquid, if it's a healthy soup and it's full of vegetables and everything like that, it will also make you full faster. So anything with liquid that you can consume, and maybe, just maybe, try not to eat an appetizer. Like, for us, like when we go out for dinner, we splurge. We're like, do you want an appetizer? Maybe choose soup, or maybe even a salad, and get the dressing on the side. Because I can't tell you how many times I've ordered a salad and it's probably like 4 or 5 like huge, just amounts of salad dressing that's on my salad to where it's swimming. And I'm like, well, okay, so now if you just get it one little thing on the side, you can kind of dip your salad or your lettuce into that actual salad dressing. You're still getting it in each and every bite, but you're probably going to save yourself some calories as well. So that's a big one. Get the dressing on the side.
Yeah, you're going to save a ton of calories, because I started doing that, I don't know, 10 or so years ago now. And my family still looks at me like, why do you have to be such a pain in the butt? Why don't you just...
I get everything on the side. Yeah, everything.
If they want to pour it on there for you, let them. I'm like, no, because it's, like you said, it's drowning in dressing. And I like the creamy, I like the blue cheese or Thousand Island. So not the vinaigrettes, right? So I like the creamier stuff. So this way I can really portion control, that side of, my diet. But, salad's a big thing. So, filling up your gut again with high fiber foods initially, like with a large salad, can really do a lot. One, it takes up space. Again, anything to promote distension in the stomach. And when you have that distension in the stomach, that's what tells your brain, okay, this guy's had quite a bit, right? But the other thing that helps out since we're talking about vegetables and salad, is that the chewing part, right? So you get enough repetitions when it comes to chewing, that also sends a signal to the brain, like, this guy's been at it for a while, so maybe it's time to kind of tell him that he's had enough, right? So when you kind of front load your meal with a salad, not only does it take up a lot of space, but what it takes to break down a salad, if you're not just putting it in your mouth and swallowing it right away, the chewing aspect does that. And that, one of the tricks, that's one of the tricks that those food contest eaters, those food competitors, eating competitors, that's what they do, right? To get their muscles going. You ever look at their jaws? They're actually pretty good because they're chewing a lot, but they have to teach their stomach to expand. So they'll do things like eating cabbage, right? And, so that's like Joey Chestnut and God, who's the other guy that does like the Nathan's hot dog competition?
I can't. They dip it in water and they shove it down their throat.
Yeah, they're just dipping it, and it's just one big soupy bread bowl. Kobayashi, and they just dip it and eat and dip it and eat. And what they have, like 63, 64, something.
I mean, seriously, how do you feel after that? I mean, first of all, it's a mystery meat within a hot dog, but we won't go down that road. But no. But to your point, chewing your food, it does release something in the brain that you've been at it for a while. And I am really bad with that as well. I'm always on the go. And, since I've had my son, I've forced my family to sit down and actually eat at the table and have a meal, and none of us are excused until everyone is done. And I've noticed that I've slowed down in my eating, which is also going to make me full faster, because before I would eat and can you see me? Like, we go and teach, we've got 15 minutes. Like, I can crush a burger and fries. Yes, I am a burger and fry girl. I can eat it in 5 minutes or less and move on. And it is not good. It's not good for your digestive system. It's not good for my brain. And then about 20 minutes later, I feel like I want to die because I'm stuffed. I'm miserable. I didn't make good choices. And, and at the end of the day, I probably would have eaten half of what I ate had I sat down, actually tasted the food that I put into my mouth. And so sitting down, really, putting your fork down in between bites, that's another big one because it takes more time.
Yep.
But just truly sitting down, chewing all your food, it is so much better for your body. But then it's also going to reduce the amount of calories that you have, because you will get fuller faster if you do that.
Right. And I think, and you're touching on, a really good point there, in the fact that, in this day and age where we're rushing, you might have a call, or like, say Stacy might have a call, or I might need to get on a call. So we're kind of tag teaming who's going to eat with the kids. But the other part of eating as a group, if you have a family or some kind of collective that you're around, that you can, sit down and break bread with, it's the fact that now you have someone to talk to, right? So, and that's what helps, you have your chewing, you have your, put the fork down, between every bite. But there's also, the time it takes for you to, you're exchanging, how your day was, how are things going, and you're catching up with people at the end of the day. If we're talking about dinner, we try to do that during breakfast as well, but, someone's getting ready all the time. But just the fact that you have that time, and again, it's another opportunity for your body to kind of realize, okay, how much food is in your system, and that takes time. Eating so fast, Wendy, like you mentioned, it's like your brain hasn't caught up to what's actually going on. So it's like Thanksgiving dinner, right? How many is like, oh man, I gotta have that piece of pie, I gotta have that piece of pie, I gotta have that stuffing, and an hour later, where are you? You're on the couch and you're immobile. You're like, thank goodness I wore the garter pants today.
Yeah. Well, that's another one. So if you guys are just joining us on Random Fit, we're talking nutrition tips and how to make good choices. I'm Wendy Batts. I'm here with Ken Miller, and we've talked about different tricks that you can do when you're at the store. We've talked about different things when you're sitting down, and in the last thing that Ken just talked about was, I think, the socializing. And to your point, Ken, to add on to that, think about this. You don't want to talk with your mouth full. So usually you'll chew, you'll take a sip of water or whatever it is that you're drinking, and then you'll have that conversation. So it really does take even more time, and the bonding that you have, because I think we're really missing that these days, as families, because everyone is always on the go. And so spending the time with your family to learn what's going on in their lives, it's a perfect time to do that. Totally off topic, but just wanted to say that.
Part of the topic.
But when you talked about Thanksgiving, and we were kind of laughing about your pants, guys, if you really want to see, we've talked about this when you're setting goals, put on a pair of jeans. And if they're uncomfortable, then maybe you need to really think about your nutrition plan, as well as maybe whatever you're doing at the gym. But if you notice that you put on a pair of pants, they start to feel pretty good during the day, and then after dinner you need to unbutton them, then you really need to think about some of these tips, because that's definitely not a sign that you're going in the right direction. But also the snacking is the worst. If you had gone and you bought a bag of chips and you're hungry, but you've got something going on, I have done this, and I've done this recently. I grabbed a bag of chips. I did not portion it. I grabbed the whole bag.
Oh, yeah.
I sat down. I had my computer next to me, and I just kept eating. Take a bite, wipe my hands, get on the computer, take a bite, wipe my hands. And before I knew it, almost, not entirely, but almost that entire bag of chips was gone.
Well, what kind of chips were they, Wendy?
They were the ranch jalapeno chips.
That wouldn't have made it. That would have just gone.
Oh, well, yeah. And Tony comes home and he's like, "Who got the chips?" I'm like, "I don't know." I'm like, "Brayden." He's like, "Mom."
Well, I'm the same with trail mix. I'll get the trail mix with the peanuts, the raisins, the sunflower seeds, and it's got the little M&Ms in it. Oh. So, but here's the thing. I will portion it. I'll put it in a bowl, and kind of like the idea we took with taking a smaller plate, I have to have a smaller bowl, because I'll be just tapping away at the keyboard, and the next thing I know, that bowl is empty. I mean, seriously, when you put you're so into something, and then you put your hand and you reach out, and next thing you know, you're touching the bottom of that bowl or that bag. You're like, where the heck did it all go? You just had that all that unconscious eating that you did, because you're chewing, you're typing and chewing, and typing, and you're grabbing for more and stuffing your face, and the next thing you know, it's like, where did it go? So I think one tip there, I guess, is smaller plates, smaller bowls.
Portion out your snacks. That's a big one.
Portion out the snacks.
Yes. And then I know another one, because this happens with a bunch of my clients. They're business, individuals. They travel a lot, and they tell me all the time, "Wendy, I have to go to dinner with a client. I have to go to, I have this going on. I cannot, I don't get to choose the restaurant," or whatever the case may be. So there's two helpful hints here, for these individuals, because I may be talking to you. Number one, if you have to go to a restaurant, then right away, as soon as they bring your plate, you can say, "Hey, can you bring me a to-go box?" And then just cut everything in half and put it in a box. And then you say, "Oh, I'm really not that hungry. I'm just going to save some for later," and that way it's off your plate. Because again, for me, clear your plate. That's what I was taught. That's a hard habit to break. And so if I'm already clearing my plate by removing half of it, I'm going to eat less. And then I will have another portion of that later if I choose to actually eat my leftovers, which half the time I don't. However, I would have eaten every bit of that if it would have been on my plate, because I would have kind of felt obligated. And
Right.
And that has been a super helpful hint for my clients, I know.
Have you ever just asked them to put half of it straight into a to-go box?
Oh, I've done that as well. I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a habit I've gotten into, especially with places that the food is very rich and creamy, and you don't want to deny yourself the experience of actually being in that that particular restaurant. One's coming to mind that happens to use a lot, real cream, real butter. The steak is the meat is fatty. So, and you want to just absorb, every aspect of that dinner, and, to eliminate that temptation. I just said, hey, if you don't mind, can you put half of it into a to-go box for me? And I've actually been told no before,
And because they won't touch your food. Yes, I
yeah,
have as
they're like,
well.
it's
Yeah.
like,
That's why I said I ask, and if not, I just say that's totally great. Can you just bring me a to go? But
Yeah.
the other part of that is also I tell them, hey, if you're not in a hotel and you're at home and you're having to go out for these business meetings or something, eat something before you go. Just eat 2 or 3 healthy snacks, maybe even a small like portion of something that is healthier. Because if you can actually get online and look at the menu and you have something in your head that, hey, this is a healthier option, so I know that I'm going to order this. Or listen, there's really not a lot of healthy options, so I'm going to eat something small before I go, and then ask, to put half of it away. Then you can also say, hey guys, I had another meeting before that. Unfortunately, I already ate, but I'm still going to eat with you. I'm just really not that hungry. Then it's going to save you a lot of calories by just, eating beforehand, especially if it is someplace like a wedding. Oh my. And now you've got these buffets everywhere. And it's like, oh, you can eat this and you can go here. I went to a wedding in Chicago. Wedding was like unbelievable. And the food that they had, they had different portions. They had, a macaroni and cheese bar. Like, who says no to that? But they were making the noodles. And then another side was like, prime rib and like fillets and all this stuff. So it was like the meat bar. And then you had the salad bar. And then you had the soup bars. I mean, they spend a ton of money on food, which I'm a foodie. I love it all. But luckily, I had eaten something. I had a late lunch, so I really wasn't that hungry. So everything that I would have eaten and consumed a ton of different, I didn't say no to anything. And this, I think, a big tip is don't deprive yourself, because if you say, I can't have that, that's all you're going to think about is, oh, I really want that piece of pizza. If you really want that piece of pizza, then eat it. Because if you say you can't, then you're going to actually fail in every diet that you do. It's just maybe cut that piece of pizza in half, not in half this way, but the whole crust half is just make it a smaller slice and still eat it. And so I think that's a big thing too, is don't deprive yourself, eat before if you can, put everything like in a to-go box or half of it in a to-go box, just get it out of your sight, because it will make a huge difference.
Right. And I think too, I mean, wedding's a pretty specific, event, right? And you want to be in the moment, you want to celebrate the couple, and and they, like you said, Wendy, they took a lot of time and effort picking that menu, I'm sure, right? It's like who thinks about macaroni and cheese? But you know what? It's a staple
in my house. I think about it all the time.
That's a winner. That's winner chicken dinner every time. You put macaroni and cheese in front of anybody. I don't know. We got to talk if you're not one of those. But you want to partake and you want to enjoy the event as well as what they thought was going to be something that you as a guest would enjoy. So I mean, same things go with dinner, and if you're out with other people. But if you take certain steps, like you're saying, portion things out, to-go box, but also, one thing that I'll add to the conversation is the fact that, don't be afraid to ask if you can change things out. So if there are menu items that, like, I don't know about mashed potatoes, can I get some fresh, do you have any steamed vegetables I can put on that instead? Maybe you like steamed vegetables over mashed potatoes, but, with mashed potatoes, you'll have the cream, you'll have the butter, things that, that makes it more calorie dense than other food choices. So that's one thing that I might say when you're out and about. Don't be afraid to ask to change out certain items on that may be off menu. But a lot of times you may get upcharged for it, but hey, at least you're going to give yourself a little pat on the back and say, hey, I did something good for myself today. Yeah. And was still in the moment and still being able to be with friends.
Still in the moment. Just say no. Yeah. I have a problem with that too. But I know we could probably go and talk about a ton of other tips, but I think these are the ones that are the easiest, in my opinion, that sometimes I totally take for granted. So I appreciate you spending this time with me, Ken, and sharing your suggestions. And hopefully everyone found this helpful.
Yeah, me too. I mean, as soon as we log off and press record on this thing, and I'm going to go clean out my cupboards. So.
I just did that. That's what triggered that. Hey, we should really talk
make
about
a list. Yeah. So Wendy, great time as always. I learned, I was reminded of quite a few things, but I learned a couple new tidbits as well. So if you took away as much as we did with these nutrition tips, please like, follow, subscribe, and keep logging in and checking us out for other cool topics we have that will help change your life for the better. So until next time, again, on behalf of Wendy and I and the National Academy of Sports Medicine, take care and be well.
We'll be right back.